The new Christie cabinet holds its first meeting. Here are the top agenda items coming up.
We are very far from being the business that we need to be to compete in a very modern and competitive environment.
BTC's top man gets ready for wireless competition, and Sandals Exuma rebounding after a stormy past couple of years. The Bahamas Tonight starts now.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
The Christie cabinet held its first meeting this morning, beginning the plans to address national deficits it's characterized as crisis issues. Good evening, I'm Keishla Adderley, and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. There are just weeks to go before the new Christie administration presents a budget to Parliament. The new cabinet held its first meeting today, preparing to execute the plans it says will revive the economy, arrest crime, among other things. Glenn Watson has a preview of the early agenda.
Cabinet ministers, including Prime Minister Perry Christie, excited for the first cabinet meeting of the PLP administration. According to Prime Minister Christie, he's ready to get down to work, if only by him showing up a half hour before time, ready to take action. How do you feel?
As excited as I felt in 2002 when I came to cabinet for the first time. It's a very interesting day for me because I'm bringing in and mixing the old with the new. Experience with sort of innovation.
Prime Minister Christie says the country is in crisis with crime and unemployment, and he admits radical initiatives must be implemented. In fact, that's where they'll begin. And with a full-day weekly meeting for the executive branch, just how much can be accomplished? Well, the nation's leader says it will require team effort.
The idea is that you've done your best to pick the best team, and you expect the team to become familiar with their ministry. Now, some ministers are not really in their ministries yet. The adjustments are being made, and so we have to begin the process today.
First up on the House of Assembly's agenda is the budget debate. Mr. Christie says it will take a different twist.
The idea is for us then to be able to indicate to the country what we have found. And that's very important because that will determine the freedom we have to implement the proposals that we've made to the country.
In addition to going down in history as one of the largest cabinets to be formed in the Bahamas, the Christie administration hopes they will go down as being one of the most effective for the Bahamian people, a mandate they've already begun working on. The Cabinet Office, Clint Watson, ZNS News.
Well, the new cabinet includes many first-timers along with political veterans. Labor and National Insurance Minister Shane Gibson is responding to those who criticized him during the campaign, and newcomer Kalis Roll, who comes with a rich private sector experience, expressed his feelings about taking a cabinet seat for the first time.
I am here to serve the people, all right? I'm here to do my job. I've always done my job. The people spoke already. They spoke in 2002, they spoke in 2007, they spoke in 2012. And so, my work speaks for itself.
It's an exciting experience, and I'm just excited about getting along with the people's business. We have a lot of work to do in this country, and my ministry is committed to executing the task ahead of us. One of the first things I said to the staff at the ministry is that we're going to try and navigate the bureaucratic maze. We're going to keep that at a minimum, and we're going to keep politics out of the decision making.
Well, not only has the new Christie administration committed to hit the ground running, they've pledged to address 14 priority issues within the first 100 days of the administration. Our Sian Thompson takes a closer look at those plans.
On their 9th day in power, Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie has already set in motion a major component of their first 100 days of governance, mortgage relief.
In the financial services area, and they indicated to me that in the governance of our country they felt disconnected, and really they thought by way of recommendation to me I should create some entity that will enable the country to see that there are people from the private sector who are involved in the close scrutiny of what is happening in the country.
The 100-day list includes the launch of key initiatives like Project Safe Bahamas, Operation Ceasefire, and the reintroduction of the Urban Renewal Project. Plans to secure the nation's borders by hiring new personnel, acquiring new technology, and initiate new training programs. Also, repositioning the Bahamas Development Bank as a key player in creating jobs and expanding small and medium-sized businesses. Also, the introduction of the Employees Pension Fund Protection Act. Its purpose, keeping pension funds out of reach for business owners and making stakeholders liable for breaches. In public health, the renewing of the nation's commitment to national health insurance and supporting the Public Hospitals Authority in acquiring much-needed new cancer screening technology to ensure that Bahamian women have access to state-of-the-art mammogram machines at both the Princess Margaret Hospital in the capital and the Rand Memorial Hospital in Grand Bahama. Also initiating a plan to lower the cost of electricity in the country. Minister of State for Investments, the Honorable Kalis Rowe.
One of the programs in the 100-day plan that we have established is to reduce the cost of energy. The cost of energy now for the average home in many cases is higher than a mortgage. So we have to find a way to bring that in line with what is acceptable.
Additional plans to provide details for a referendum on a national lottery and gambling in the Bahamas. Reduce the maximum level of stamp tax payable on real estate transaction from 12% to 10%. Also, the reintroduction of a ceiling of the maximum level of real property taxes payable on a residence. The government wants to form a national congress to create a comprehensive long-term plan for the country called Vision 2030. With critical issues facing the country, the Christie administration has the next 91 days to fulfill their first set of commitment to the Bahamian people. Reporting from the Cabinet Office, Sian Thompson, ZNS News.
The package of crime bills passed under the previous administration, which included stiffer criminal penalties, may face some changes. National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage says a review is pending.
Everything is under review. What is interesting is that a lot of the persons who have been, I can't call them victims, who have been convicted under some of those bills have made certain approaches to us about the severity of some of the sentences, for example. And if you would recall, the appeals court has also given an opinion on that. So I think that is an area that we will have to review.
Urban Renewal 2.0 is expected to be rolled out within the next 2 weeks. The police are expected to play a major role in that program. Minister Nottage says the officers who will head the various divisions have already been appointed. Also, in the first 100 days, you can expect to see the introduction of Marco's Law, an initiative proposed by this administration to safeguard the health and welfare of children. It was named after 11-year-old Marco Archer, who was abducted and murdered last year. Changes are also proposed for the terms of employment of the police commissioner.
Something else you'll see in the first 100 days is we're going to correct the problem that exists, that we think exists with the Police Act in terms of the security of tenure of the commissioner. We're going to amend that to ensure that the commissioner has security of tenure and can be sufficiently independent to carry out his duties without interference.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Works and Urban Development Philip Brave Davis has identified as his main priority in the ministry completing the new Providence Road improvement project. He's already started assessing what it will take to achieve that. He says the good news is the works are more than 80% complete. He says he's hoping to get it finished with as little inconvenience as possible.
I have to come to grips with and put my mind around what has informed the overruns, what are the components of the works that has contributed to that cost overruns, and to see how we could address those aspects of the works going forward to minimize any further cost overruns. Insofar as the execution of the works to its completion, alterations would be required or made to ensure that there'll be no further job losses, no further closures of businesses, and to minimize the disruption in the lives of the Bahamian people in Providence.
Speaking to urban development and the introduction of Urban Renewal 2.0, Mr. Davis said the program will be carried out in stages.
There are two aspects to it. It's the development part of it, where we intend to clean up the inner city and transform it into a more habitable environment. And then there's the renewal itself, where we intend to impact the lives of people living in these communities by offering them hope and inspiring them to do more for themselves and to lend them the assistance in doing that.
Well, it's been just over a week now since the Progressive Liberal Party's landslide victory at the polls. Shanique Miller takes a look tonight at some of the challenges of the campaign.
Since last Monday's win at the polls, the PLP has been hit with a number of reasons on how they pulled it off. He says the PLP worked smarter and longer in the constituencies they sought to represent.
If you look at the seats we won those seats because Mr. Ingram underestimated me, and I prepared for the elections by putting people in the field over 18 months ago. So my candidates had a distinct advantage over the F&M candidates. They were in the field, and even though adjustments were made to constituency, people got to know them, and people got to trust them because they had more time. He did not allow his candidates enough time to be known to people out there, so he lost. The Elizabeth by-election taught me a lesson, and I knew he didn't have the capacity. He couldn't beat me in the by-election to beat me if I prepared. I prepared.
Numerous allegations have surfaced that the PLP during the campaign placed monies in T-shirts or in the lead up to the ballot day paid voters. Mr. Christie spoke to those claims.
With respect to putting monies in a T-shirt, that's foolishness. Multiply that amount by the amount of people who vote and to see what that would end up doing. That's a foolish assertion.
But Christie admits corruption has entered the electoral environment. He says they stretch beyond outright voter buying too. The Prime Minister says he plans on addressing it. Here's how.
I propose to move legislation to eliminate all of these aspects that lead to corrupt practices. For example, I do not believe that a government ought to be allowed to give contracts out once the House is dissolved. And the only way I could further that belief is to pass legislation to restrict that and prohibit that. All of the law, there's something in the law called treaty. And when you're giving out jobs to people during an election campaign or giving out contracts to people, you're inducing them to vote for you in consideration of the favors you're doing for them. I want to minimize that. So you can look to me to be talking very seriously about something you've heard about a lot, electoral reform.
Shanique Miller, ZNS News.
The Free National Movement has announced its choices for the Senate. Former Minister of Education Desmond Bannister will lead opposition business in the upper chamber. Former Minister of State for Finance Shivargo Lang, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly Sian Thompson, and Attorney Heather Hunt will have been selected to serve. The group will be sworn in at Government House at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Well, still to come in the Bahamas tonight, how ready is BTC for competition? We'll hear from the CEO coming up.